everyone, it's Michelle with Country Morning Creations, and I'm back with a tutorial on distressing your book covers. So what I have here is an embossed book cover that I have created. I created it from scratch, created the curved spine and had the hardboard and covered it. And I painted it this creamy color and then went over it with this pink color. But I wanted to make this look a little bit more aged, and it's grungy, but I wanted a little bit more grunge to it. So one of the things I found is Tim Holtz Distress Paint. Now, who knew vintage photo that Tim Holtz made distress paint in vintage photo? Well, somewhere along the lines I found this and I used this for some other projects, and I thought, you know what? I just want to use it for this project. So what we're going to do, it does have a shaker in it, and you do want to shake your paint. And I'm just going to put a little bit on, this is actually a slightly used paper plate. So you just want a tiny bit. And what we're going to do is use a technique called dry brushing. So what I have here is a 1-inch, just regular, I use this to paint my house with too, so it's multi-purpose. I use it for a lot of things. But what we want to do is, and this is just going to be a real quick tutorial because there isn't a whole lot to it. So you want to take the paint, but you want to almost completely dry your brush, and you're just going to start on the edges, and just like if you were doing, you know, like going around a piece or something like that, you're just going to brush real lightly from the outside in. So we don't want to put a lot on the brush, and we don't want to load it up too much, but you just want to get a little bit. Now, one of the places where I feel like I want to get this is down into the hinge here. So I just want a little bit on the hinge, and a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom. And then I'm kind of going to do a little bit over this part because this is kind of where, but see, I'm using a really light hand. So I just am bringing this, toning this down just a wee bit. And then we get to the front, and again, we're just going to do the same thing. Just, you want to get your brush as dry as you can, get as much of it off. Otherwise, it's going to be dark, and we don't want that. But this is, you know, it's vintage photo, just as though you were maybe working on a project. And I'm going to start here. So if you had a maybe a book, and people would pick it up a lot more right through this section than through some of the other sections. And so we're just distressing this a little bit around the edges. The edges would get darker because that would be where you would get a lot more of your abuse, if you will, and a lot more use. We're going to get down into this crack as well, or this is a hinge actually. So now I have it down in that hinge, and then I'm going to come back across this part so it's going around the outside edge. And that, so now you can kind of see that it's kind of bringing up some of the color, but we're leaving the color in the middle just a little bit lighter. So you want your darker colors on the edges, just like when you go in and do a, you know, go around a photo or a card or something like that. And you just use a tiny bit. And so I've now taken this from what looked like a very newer book, and it was getting kind of that aged look, to now, if you can see, I think the camera's really picking it up well, you've got some of this darker color just around the edges. There's a little bit on the back of the spine, and a little bit more. I may just do a little bit more around the edges here again, just to really give it more of that grunge kind of look. So that's all there is to aging and distressing your cloth book covers with the Tim Holtz Distress Paint. I hope you've enjoyed this quick tutorial, and I hope I've inspired you to be creative.